But then they also, sometimes it's mentioned that anything that is written under 10,000 words is a short form fiction. Anything that crosses 30 to 40,000 words, that's a novella. Anything that crosses 60, 70,000 words, 70,000 words is ideal usually. That's considered to be a good novel. So since we are going to be focusing on short form fiction, I'm just going to start off by telling you or sharing with you that I have, as a writer of short stories and a reader, because writer is something that I have recently become maybe 4 or 5 years ago. But reader I have been since always, as I'm sure most of you have been students of English literature. There are three kinds of short form fiction. We are going to discuss them individually, one after the other, so that you get to know, or you at least you can refresh in your mind whatever your very able, competent teachers have already taught you. And hopefully by the end of this session, you'll be very encouraged to start writing short stories of your own. The first kind is the short form fiction. Okay, that is the short story. The first thing about this is that it usually follows a set pattern. The rules are very flexible. This has to be, endorsed as much times as possible. There is a beginning, there is a middle, and there is an ending. By now, you're already aware that when I say beginning, it means that it's going to give you an introduction to the setting, to the place, that is the setting, the characters, that is the minor and major people that you're going to include. It's also going to give you a certain kind of a feel. Most writers of short form fiction, they give you that. If the story is going to have some sort of mystery in it, the aura or the imagery built in the first part of the story usually gives that away. Yes? If they want to give you a very picturesque image, if there's going to be romance, for example, if there's going to be murder, there's going to be some sort of introduction woven within the text of the beginning. Then there is the middle part. The middle part is where you build up the stance of the story. That is where most of your brickwork is done. When I say brickwork, it means that you're going to focus on the narration, you're going to focus on the character building, you're going to focus on the story itself, because there are going to be ups and downs. Never, ever keep one singular mood in a short story. That is going to make it very linear, and that is going to defeat the purpose of fiction itself. Never, ever take one straight story and go, just keep going in that direction. There should always be some branches sprawling out of within your middle. When you're writing the middle part of your story, then you have to just explore a little. But always, this is very scientific in a way. That just like, I hope you remember when you used to study biology, there were veins and arteries and there were capillaries. So when I talk about the middle part of the short story, that is when you build up, that is when you do your brickwork. That is the image somehow that comes to me. That there are things that there's, veins have a purpose, they take the blood from, and then there's the purpose of the arteries, they bring the blood back. And then there are capillaries, which are very, very short branches of the veins and arteries where the blood reaches. So I'm just giving you a very vague image. I hope you don't find it very gruesome or something. But this is how I think when you are writing your middle part of the story, when you are building up the crescendo of the story, that is what you remember. That while keeping stuck, while you keep going back to the main structure, the main crux of the story, you always just go around a little, give the reader a little description, maybe more about the character by connecting it to another character who does not have really who doesn't have anything to do with the plot really, but then they add some sort of spice, they add some sort of humor, they add some sort of I don't know, misery to the story. And all of these things depend upon the main structure of your story. Whatever the main structure is, if you think it's going too linear, then the capillaries, they should be serving to break the monotony. And that is it. Yes. The middle part is also the part where you introduce your conflict. Yes. Now this when I say that there has to be a conflict, it makes it sounds very calculative. I mean, if all of us are going to follow this set pattern, then all our stories are going to sound similar. They're going to read off like the same, but they don't. That's the beauty of it. Because one story being told by four different writers is always going to have a different nuance to it. How is that possible? The thing is about nuance that it's very subjective. Everyone, for example, there's this story of Goldilocks and the Three Bears. My middle child, I mean, when she was a little girl, I have told her that story a zillion times. I mean, every bedtime, every nap time, every meal time, I had to tell her that story. And even she could, she could even tell me the story back by the time she was 2.5 or something. So even if a story as simple as plain as Goldilocks and the Three Bears is going to be retold by four different writers, they are going to put a focus on one thing and remove the focus for another in a very individual style. That is the idea of adding nuance subjectively. How do you ignore something and how do you assert something? That is the power of the writer. That is where the brain of the writer can be read, where the writer is coming from, what the writer has in mind, what the writer puts more importance upon. Yes. So about the middle part again, going back to where I started this sidelight discussion, is that when you're introducing the climax or the conflict, sorry, when you're introducing the conflict in a story, it does not always have to be a negative conflict. It does not always have to have, the forces of evil and good fighting with each other. It doesn't always have to be melancholy and happiness pitted against each other. When I say that you have to build a crescendo, when I say that you have to build up the conflict, that is when you are conflicting the reader. Yeah, most of the times that's what you're doing. The reader is at conflict. Which character to side with, which kind of understanding to develop, to like a certain plot or not, to like a certain character or not. So when you're writing, this is when you're writing for yourself, of course, but then you're also writing for the reader. If a writer has some confusions in his mind and he writes something, that confusion is going to show until and unless a character, an arc of the story, or any position that you want to take in a social construct, maybe it's something that's related to realism, until and unless it has arrived to you in a very clear way, you simply cannot write it or you cannot put it on paper, because it's very easy for readers to judge. It is very easy for readers to see that this is something confused, just like we discover plot holes in films, just like we discover plot holes in dramas or TV plays that we watch. So since that is also sort of a script writing, that is also storytelling of another kind, when you're writing short stories, you have to be very, very careful, very precise. Until and unless you're clear in the head, don't put a word down. Don't build up a character just because it appeals to you. Yeah, a character or a writer can write about a character because it appeals to them, because they like him or like her. But then there has to be a wholesomeness to it. When we get attached to our characters as writers, then what happens? We don't have a very holistic approach towards them. We don't write them in a very in a very wholesome way. Their story, their characters, their maybe their flaws or their weaknesses or their shortcomings, we're not going to explore them the way the reader might expect us to. We're just going to focus on how cool they are and everything. But then that is the thing about building up characters, that you have to, even if you have an emotional attachment with them, try to see them properly so that you can present them properly on paper. And the more, muted me. Aisha, someone is muting me. Can you please not mute me? Thank you. Please unmute me.
Who's doing that?
I have no idea, but someone is muting me. I have to press the space bar on my laptop so that I can talk to you. When I leave it, I go mute. So please, can you see that? I'll just say.
Mahnoor,
Mute.
what's going on?
Yeah, okay, fine. Yeah, I got that window thing. It said that the host has unmuted you, so unmute yourself. Thank you very much. I think it was a mistake. That's all right. But that has lost me what I was, it's,
I'm so sorry, Sana.
about. Can someone remind me, Aisha, what was I saying?
आपने इतना डराया कि मैं भी भूल गई हूँ.
बच्चों, आप लोगों में से किसी को याद है exactly what I was talking about?
Saying something, I think she's reminded us.
You were saying that unless we understand our character, the writer should understand his or her character clearly so that he or she can write.
Yes. Yes. Thank you. Thank you very much. Now I remember.
And you were saying that we should try not to fall in love with our character.
Yes.
Otherwise, we won't go into detail.
Yes.
We will
yes.
not be able to do justice with the characters.
Yes. Thank you so much. I'm so glad all of you are attentive. I am very happy to know that. So many answers. Thank you. Thank you. So that was about characters. And then that was about plot. I think I've told you two things which are very important when you're writing short stories and you have reached the middle part: how to build your characters, how to relate with them, how to associate with them, and still detach. Certain writers find it very difficult to detach. I'm one of those writers. When I am writing about a character, when I'm thinking about them, I find it very difficult to detach from them. I might be doing anything, going for a ride on a car, or walking, taking a walk outside or something, but I can't get that character out of my head. In a way, it's very helpful. It's very helpful because the more a writer thinks about their character, the more a writer mentally engages with their character, the more the character reveals themselves to the writer. That is something very, very helpful, I must tell you. It's all right if you feel the urge to talk to them. It's all right if they suddenly appear in your dream. That is the best thing, believe me, because those kind of dreams, they really help in analyzing situations. They sometimes give you speech and dialogues as well. I mean, they give it to me, at least when I see my characters in my dreams. Second, why it is important to detach. When I emphasize on the fact that it's all right to create a relationship with your characters, not fall in love with them, but get to know them, befriend them. But then at the same time, the contradiction here is that you have to detach. Why is that important? I've already briefly discussed that, but I still need to emphasize here a little that when you feel that the character is going too white, you see, they're black and white. When we are writing anything, when we are reading anything, when we are analyzing anything, assessing something, we have this black and white thing going on. If the character that you're writing about, thinking about, engaging with, dreaming about, if they're going too much to the white side, then that means that you need to hold your horses. That means that you need to pull back a little. You need to take a break, either by writing something else, either by reading something else, involving your senses, your mental occupation into something else. You have to do that so that you can see that character in their grace. This is also something which can work as a life lesson for you. All are very smart girls. I'm sure you already realize this, that there's never all whiteness and all blackness to things or people. There's always grace, gray scales. You see them in their grace, and then you learn to appreciate people for who they are, for what they are, what they stand for. Even if you don't appreciate, you don't agree with them, you accept them. Acceptance, this is something off topic, but still, since I'm talking about it, I need to say this here, that acceptance is not worthy when you're only accepting people who are, you can relate with. Acceptance means that even people who are not like you, but they are good in their own way. You can accept them. That is acceptance. Yes. So when this also applies to your characters as well. When you're writing about a villain, for example, when you're writing about an evil character, when you're writing about someone who's going to disrupt the plot, create conflict upon conflict in your characters' lives, and you're going to feel miserable, doing that to your favorite characters, to your hero, to your heroine, you still have to go on. You still have to be that villain in your head. And you have to think like the villain. You need to know how and where the villain can strike the hardest, the toughest, so that it can actually hurt your favorite character. That's a very difficult job. It's a very difficult thing to do, to hurt your own characters and then, bring them up and make them resurface. And, it's difficult. But then that's how storytelling is. You have to play, a lot of roles. That depends on how well you engage with all the characters. So when I talk about engagement with your characters, it's not only the positive characters that you like, that are going in the whites or tilted towards the white, but you also have to engage. You have to become the character who's going towards blacks, yes, who's going towards villainy, who's going towards tyranny or something. So, that actually opens up. That opens up your mind in so many ways, and you get to see how intricate characterology is. And when you can do that, you have that ability to do that in fiction, you will certainly grasp that much of ability to apply it to real life. And that makes life very, very easy, very simple, very beautiful. How many of you have read Milton's Paradise Lost? Have you?
Ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, lovely. Because we used to study that in, BA literature. I am not sure what the syllabus these days is, but we studied chunks of it in Paradise Lost. And you see Milton, who is usually celebrated as a very religious poet, who used to write poems and sonnets despite his blindness. You see how he has glorified Satan in that poem. I find that very interesting.
Yes,
I find that
grand.
his book, it's volumes of books. I think Paradise Lost is spanned over volumes, and I think 9 volumes, if I'm not wrong, but I'm not going to endorse or stress on the number 9 because I'm not really sure. But I think it was 9.
Yeah, it was nice.
Yeah, I remember that much. I think I'm going to start reading that book, those volumes. I've really, developed a certain interest in that kind of poetry, certainly. So when Milton is writing about Satan in 9 volumes of his book, he's being very careful in glorifying him as well as making him very real in front of us. He just, he appears to be a very interesting character. And why I bring this up is that it's strange that a poet who is considered to be religious is capable of writing in a way that could be, God forbid, not really accepted in certain circles, in religious circles. But then he did, and he's done a glorious job out of that. And it's interesting that the way writers create a connection or a relationship with their writers is always reflected in their writing. It also always shows how much a writer has been wedded to their character, how much they have spoken to them, how much they have conversed with them in their mind or something. That is something that you should always look for, since short story does not really give you the privilege that a novel does in constructing a character or exploring a character. When you're reading a novel, there are chapters upon chapters, pages upon pages dedicated to one character. So that growth can be slow. That growth of the character can be subtle. It can be taken at a slow pace, but we don't have that choice in a short story, because if we are going to delve in just exploring one character in a short form, then what are we even doing? Then the story won't be told, the other characters won't be explored, the narrative shall be weak. So what we have to do, we have to be very choicey. Now, although I have discussed the beginning and the middle part, I'm going to come down to the structure part later, how to construct and how to be careful, how to abstain from going too ambitious with imagery, with other things, which, you know, your word count might not allow. I'm going to touch that later. I'm going to come to the end, the end part. What does the end say? The end is where conflicts are resolved. When I say resolved, it does not mean a happy ending, always. Yeah, it can go either way, any story. Just because the characters, the hero, the heroine, they don't really find what they set out for, does not really mean it's the conflicts have not been resolved. They are resolved, but in the worlds of the other characters who were there, who were accomplices to the tragic plot or something. So when we talk about resolution, it means that the story has come to an end. There are certain stories which are deliberately ended in a way that the reader wants them to go on. No, I'm not done here. I need to know more. There could have been another ending. I mean, we feel like ripping our hair out of their roots. Why did the writer do this to me? But that's usually, it's deliberate. It's deliberate because certain endings have to be, they are left open-ended, certain conclusions. And sometimes the writer allows a certain kind of ambiguity to stay afloat in the ending of the story in a way that the reader can just decide to take the story either with a pinch of salt or with a pinch of sugar. No, I think this is what it means. I think it was a good ending. It was a happy ending. This is what they're going to do next. I think this is what is going to happen. So that gives you solace. And that is something, I think that is very interesting of certain writers who just leave stories in a very ambiguous way. They leave them open-ended in an ambiguous way, in a way that the reader can stay connected to that story. That is what this kind of ending does, actually. I mean, it can be frustrating at times. You can really feel very angry at the writer. Why did he not give me what I required to know? But then that is something also that keeps you thinking. That is something that keeps the story in your mind. And then you realize that even after you have closed the book, even after the pages have been turned over, you're still thinking about the characters. You're still thinking about the story. And you're still conflicted whether or not the kind of ending that you have chosen is correct. Yes? So these are three things. The beginning.
But ma'am, it's such a torture.
Yeah, it is. It is. But then that's all right. I think that is what writers intend to do. Exactly what I said, that they want you to think and keep thinking about this, even if it frustrates you, even if you feel angry at the writer or the characters, and you're like, wow, this is a waste of time. Why did I read this story in the first place? It didn't really. I mean, just talking about it makes me angry. But then that's the thing. The writer wants you to think about it. Maybe the story has had a certain nuance. It has had a certain discourse or a certain narrative, which the writer wanted to leave the reader with. And the way to leave the strongest impact of a story, of a discourse, of a narrative is I think this is the simplest way to do that the reader is made to think, is made to remember, is made to go back, turn the pages and see, oh, but isn't this what happened? I thought this was almost resolved. Isn't this what this character A said to character B? And I thought this is what it meant. And that is exactly what the writer is doing when you are going back, when you are assessing and reassessing, evaluating and reevaluating things. That is exactly what the writer wants. And that is where the writer wins. Yes? So that's interesting. That's very interesting. Whatever you read, try to analyze, try to evaluate them, those things nonetheless. They help. They help. Especially when you are writing. Someone told me, I don't remember exactly, I think it was my teacher, but she said that to write one short story, you need to at least read 100. So you see, this is what the ratio is. This is where the weight belongs. You have to read a lot to write one story, because that helps you discover your own original style. That helps you discover what you want to write. That helps you discover what kind of genre you want to pick. Yes, where your strengths lie, where your weaknesses lie, what things you side with, what things you want to avoid. That will help you, even when you like a story or you don't. But then that the impact that the story is going to leave you with is definitely going to help you grow and grow as a writer. And it will also help you in your self-discovery as a writer. While we have discussed the beginning, the middle, and the end, I'm going to ruin all of this for you by saying that despite this chronological order that I have gone through with you people, it's not always done this way. You don't always begin a story with the beginning. You don't always bring the middle part into the middle part. You don't always finish writing a story with the ending. It can go either way. You can experiment in any way. For example, a story can begin with the ending. You see,
flashback भी होते हैं.
हाँ, exactly. मैं यहीं पे आ रही थी. Shabash, very good girl. When we watch films or movies, sometimes the stories, the screen just lights up with a weird scene, which is like an ending. For example, I don't know. I don't watch a lot of films, to be honest, so I can't really quote an example. But if in stories, it also happens that suddenly there's this scene and you don't know what to make of it because things seem to be collapsing, issues seem to be resolving, characters seem to have come full circle. What's going on? But then suddenly the writer takes you back in time. Yes? They give you an epilogue or prologue, sorry. They give you a prologue or they give you a chapter 1 or something like that, which is briefer. And then they take you back in time. That is the retrospect part of it can be seen as the retrospect of the character, any character that they're thinking, they're lost in memory or something, or they can just, the writer can just take you back in time themselves with the help of imagery and with the help of the story. There are certain stories which start from the middle. They are going to give you scenes, they're going to give you images, they're going to give you symbols, introduction to the characters, but then you see that there's a lot of dialogue happening between characters you don't know, you don't associate with, who are they, whether it's a girl or a boy, what age are they of, where are they living, where are they staying, but there's a lot happening around. That is when stories usually start from the middle. And then they start introducing the characters to you. That is where the introduction begins. So there is no set pattern for this. When I talk about beginning, middle, and end, it is only to give you a very brief perspective into what to look in for beginnings, what to look in the middles, and what to look in the conclusions or the endings. But the course of it all, the chronology of it, the chronology of it all, and the order of it all is going to be ultimately decided by the writer, which is going to be you. All right. So this is about the short form fiction. We are done with that. That is the short story. We are done with that part. Second is the flash fiction. Now, what is flash fiction? Flash fiction is ideally something that is a short story, which is written within the bracket of 1,000 words. Now, how cool is that? Yeah. I find flash fiction to be more difficult to write than short form. And the reason for that is that it gives very little room to explore. Since you're not going to explore your characters fully in 1,000 words, since you're not going to explore your setting in 1,000 words, you're not going to introduce conflict resolution in detail in 1,000 words or within 1,000 words, then that makes things very difficult. So this is where the element of choice comes in. You have to be very, very choosy in picking your words in your sentences. You don't have to repeat something. Don't use a lot of and words. Don't use a lot of adjectives. But then sometimes you have to use adjectives because one adjective describes the character fully. But this is very tricky. It's very tricky. But I think if as writers or as students of literature who want to go into writing or were studying creative writing, if there is one challenge that you need to start off your writing career with, it has to be flash fiction. You can't start it with Once Upon a Time. You can't start it with a standard beginning, middle, and end. It can't be like that. Flash fiction is like a chunk out of reality. It's like something is going on somewhere in some part of the world with some characters known or unknown to you. And then out of their reality, out of their total story, you just pick a small chunk. Like you cut one slice from a whole cake, and that is usually enough. Take it like that. Since there are blood, veins and arteries and capillaries in the short form fiction, let's come down to cake with this one. You have a big cake in front of you, but then you cut one slice, and when you eat that slice, isn't that enough to tell you what the whole cake is about? So where your strength as a writer lies is to put enough meat, enough material in that one slice, so that when the reader is going to take that one slice for one full serving, they know exactly what the whole cake is about. Yes? That's flash fiction. Aisha and your other teachers, they are very well equipped with flash fiction. I've read their work and I'm very impressed with what they write. I'm sure they can they can guide you more with how to go about the flash fiction thing, but it's one of my favorite forms of writing. It's very challenging. And this is something that you don't even have to do for your class assignments. This is something you can do when you're free, when you're sitting in the car maybe, and you can write something that's 500 words. Never allow commentary. Allow commentary to be a part of your fiction, whether it's flash fiction or it is short form fiction or whatever. Don't do that. Your personal thoughts or how you feel about things, how you judge things, how you assess things should not come out of your mind. It should not reflect that this is the writer talking to me through the character. No, that's not, through the narration. Let your characters talk. Let them be who you want them to be. Instead of inserting lots and lots of lofty comments about society and functionaries and people and the world and whatever, don't add personal comments to your fiction, because that takes away a lot from fiction. It turns it into non-fiction. The story then becomes about the writer more than it is about the characters. That is unfair. Make the story always about the characters. Make it that makes.
Ma'am, I want to add a few words here. I
Please
believe
do.
that in flash fiction, if we would introduce typical characters, type characters, a character who's a teacher, with this character, certain attributes are associated, then it would be easy to build on a short story, a flash fiction, and just one event, one extraordinary, unusual happening would perhaps be enough to give a twist to this piece of writing. This is my opinion of it. A type character going through an unusual happening or event. What do you say about that?
All right, Aisha, that is, of course, doable. That is entirely subjective. Depends on the writer, whether they want to give the prime position to the subject, to the character, and then add a little of the environment or the setting to it. That is a balance that the writer has to choose. If you're going to talk a lot about the character, that even has to be done in a very fictionalized way. We can't really go into stereotypical. At least I don't encourage students to pick very stereotypical characters and then paint them in a very stereotypical way. That is storytelling, of course. That is storytelling, but then it's been done to death, to be honest. What you're saying, I completely get. I completely get that in flash fiction, you say a lot about the character, but that is exactly something that I was hinting at. Don't put yourself in place of the character. Let the character emerge, grow, and come to life independently. Yes, if you want to write about something, or anyone wants to write something about themselves, there are many mediums to do that. You can even write a flash fiction in your journal, but when you're submitting something, when you're writing something as a professional writer, try not to become too involved in the script. Don't make it about yourself. That is not something that's something that jumps off, believe me. If a reader, if an editor because they know that this is a teacher who's writing, and the story that you are submitting, and the story that is being read by a panel of editors or an editorial board, or by one editor even, and they know that this is a teacher who's writing, and this is a story of a teacher, and only the character has been put a lot of focus upon. I mean, it's going to jump off the page as something that is done as a half-hearted attempt, I'm sorry to say. But when you explore characters which are not you, when you tell stories of those people who are not you, that is what strengthens fiction. That is what strengthens your art as well. That is what strengthens your skill and craft to put imaginary people, imaginary settings, imaginary things on paper in a way that they start to seem real. I think that should be the strength of any form of writing, novel, poetry, short form, flash fiction, whatever. If any writer is going to put too much of themselves in a story, believe me, it jumps off the page. It shows. It takes away a lot of enthusiasm. It takes away, the charm of reading such a story. Of course, writers reflect in their writing, but not, when we're talking about flash fiction, since you're talking about flash fiction, and your question was that, the story should primarily be about the character, and then you add a twist to it. So when, if you're saying doctor, if you had said doctor, my answer would have been different. If you had said a transgender, my answer would have been different, because then you're using a lot of imagination. You're going to be using a lot of research, maybe. You're going to have to speak to a transgender. You're going to have to read the story of transgenders. You're going to have to watch their interviews, or just look up on YouTube how transgenders talk, what they think, how they speak, how they live their lives. So when you are exploring out of your own personality, that is what adds strength to fiction. That is what you should aim for. Writing and telling our own stories it's important. This is something that acts as catharsis. This is something that acts as development. This is something that acts as a lot of, it gives a lot of growth as a writer, as a person, as a woman. It's important. But then don't make it something habitual. Don't make it something that is part of your professional writing. Make it part of your personal writing. That's fine, but not for professional. That doesn't really, I don't feel that really works very well. I hope that answers the question. If you require further discussion, I'm here.
Yes,
the third kind of fiction that I'm going to discuss very, very briefly is the micro flash fiction. Now, we have seen poetry coming up, which comprises of less than 3 or 4 lines, 5 lines maximum. Yeah. So just like that, the latest introduction, I think, to short form is this micro flash fiction or microfiction. And that can be 100 words or 200 words. There are a lot of online literary journals. There are lots of, these Instagram handles, Instagram accounts who encourage, their Facebook accounts who encourage people to submit their micro flash fiction, which is 100 words, 200 words, 250 words. And, you can just submit your fiction to them, and they choose and they publish them, which is encouraging. I think for new writers, for students, for youngsters who are practicing, want to practice their art, who want to hone themselves with the skill of writing, who want to get into the habit of submitting, getting accepted, as well as accepting defeat in the form of rejection. I mean, that is also something very important. I think as a writer, you need to go through these things, and habitually, frequently. You must know when to, if your writing is rejected, rejoice, celebrate. But if it is rejected, just don't lose heart. Yeah, don't think that what you wrote wasn't good enough. Just go back, revise it. Very objectively. Read when you're writing, write your heart out. Write it for yourself. Write it like, this is the best thing of writing I've ever done or ever will be done in this world. Do that. Have that kind of ambition and compassion and spark for yourself. Nothing wrong with that. But when you sit down to edit, be your worst enemy. Be your worst critic. Yes? And when you do that, when you are going to criticize while editing, because you're going to see the loopholes. You're going to see how this could have been made better. when you reach that stage, when you know that this thing, whatever you wrote, the script, the novel, the short story, the poem, flash fiction, microfiction, whatever you're writing, when you can see after detachment of 1 week, few days, 1 month, when you revisit it and you see that there have been errors, then that's fine. That is when you have really matured as a writer. Then you go back, you criticize yourself, you reevaluate, you reassess, you re-edit, you rework your own work, and you add so much finesse to it until it deems perfect. And this is how it should be. Before submitting, allow yourself enough time to reassess and revalue your own work. So, just put it away for a few days and start reading a book so that you mentally escape the world that you have created, and you get lost in another writer's world. And then you go back to it. I think that is the best way to do it. Then you go back to your own work and you see that there are a few things which you could have worked on harder, and then you do that. So I think that is something that is very prime. With microfiction, it's something that I would encourage students to do. Please look up different journals on Facebook and Instagram. I know a few. I've never submitted to them, of course, but I see a lot of students do that. A lot of young people, young writers do that, and it's very encouraging. When you get, you submit something, it gets published, even if it's online. You take screenshots, you share it with your family, your friends, you post them online. That's very encouraging. It gives you, an uplift that a writer needs all the time. So try to do that always. Start writing, get those pens crackling, because pens, they should never really be put down. Always, they should always have a connection with paper. That is something I firmly believe in. So now, although I'm going to wrap up this workshop, I think, yes, I'm going to wrap it up. But what I'm going to say about the importance of attending this kind of workshops, or why I feel very encouraged and very humbled and honored when I'm asked to speak to students and youngsters alike about short form storytelling or anything. It's because I feel that the purpose of this workshop, or all the workshops that Aisha has arranged for you with wonderful poets and authors, it should be that it should encourage you to write. Just don't write it, or just don't attend these because you are supposed to or obliged to, but go home and start writing something. Look up for journals, or not online or in print. I have put here one journal that's my favorite. It's my favorite journal, literary journal. It's the Aleph Review. This is this year's edition of it. And it's wonderful. It's got art and it's got literature. It's wonderfully designed, very, very beautifully curated. The editor is Mehwish Amin. She's amazing, and so is her literary journal. What I'm trying, this is their last year's edition, and this was also amazing. See the artwork? It's fabulous. It's fabulous. Why the reason I'm showing you these journals is one of them has my work as well. Always try to submit. Look up these journals and get into the profession of writing, even if it's something that it's not going to earn you your bread and butter. But still, you need, if you are studying creative writing, if you have the ambition of being a writer, always go for that. Always go for submissions. Look up these journals, different online magazines and periodicals or whatever, and then submit to them. The acceptance and the rejection both teach you a lot. Both teach you a lot. Also, I'm going to show, I had some few books. I don't usually do this, but since you're like family to me, so I'm going to show off a little. So this is The Bridge by Aisha. This is also a collection of short stories. Always be on the lookout. Always be on the lookout for advertisements and promotions. And when editors are asking for submissions, go for them. Go for them. Take a chance. Aisha is, you're again doing something like this. Yes, Aisha, you're putting together
Yes.
another of short stories
Thank you very
from
much
the
for
students.
raising this point, Sana. I wanted to tell you that we are opening a very interesting platform for our students and writers, of course, alike.
Excellent.
And that be the website. And you just mentioned that they should look up for sources for online
Yes.
publishing and get rejected or accepted. So that doesn't matter. So that platform is it's specifically for to connect writers from around the globe. and
Yeah.
the idea came from the bridge. So the
Yes.
website is going to be inshallah launched on the 4th of January, and all of
Yay.
you are going to register inshallah, and we'll have lots and lots of activities there, and writing competitions, and and Sana is definitely going to be engaged, and her profile is
I'd love to. I'd love to. Congratulations for the website as well. The two editions of Bridge, and also for the
and the third
that you are putting up
we have put up
together.
the call for contribution for volume 3 as well. So Sana,
Lovely.
get up and get ready and
Sure. Definitely. I'm going to whip something up. Good enough for you, that is.
this time we are connected
I,
with Nigeria,
I'm going
and
to, yeah.
the thing is going to be raised. So I think we are going to really enjoy that. So that's apart from what you were
Excellent.
saying. Please
I'm
go
very
ahead.
thrilled to know that. I'll be very happy. Thank you very much for inviting me online. Thanks so much. This is my book. Aisha has already shown it to you. This is also a collection of short stories. So
I have that too.
yes, I know. So the reason I'm showing off this is, which I usually don't do, is that this book also started out as me just engaging myself, or making use of my free time. I wrote one story, I liked it. I wrote another, I liked that too. I revisited them, I made some additions to them, and by the time I had written 3 short stories just out of the blue, I thought, why shouldn't I get them into print? And so from 1, 2, 3, it became 10 stories. And luckily, I found a publisher and a literary agent. And here it is. The book it has done well. It has done me well. I'm very grateful to the book for giving me an identity of being a writer and an author. This is the second book. I've co-edited it. This is just out. It's been
I'm
published.
waiting for my copy.
Yeah, Aisha has also a story in this book. This is an anthology by 26 or 27 different writers from Pakistan. Amazing writers who have very kindly contributed to this anthology. It's titled The Stained Glass Window, and it's about the stories of the pandemic from Pakistan. We are doing online talks these days on, from the platform of the Liberty Books. Yes, we're doing that these days, and it's very much available. If anyone's interested in reading Aisha's work, since she's your teacher, you must, and make her happy. So why I am showing these collections of short stories to you is that it's not that when you're going to write one short story, kaun chhapega, kya karenge? Don't think like that. वो कहते हैं खतरा खतरा मिलकर दरिया बनता है. So make effort. Make that effort. If you're writing one thing, it can always lead to another, then to another, and then it can lead to bigger things. So don't lose hope if your stories are not accepted somewhere. एक दफा किसी ने मना कर दिया, 2 बार मना कर दिया, that's fine. कितनी बार कोई मना करेगा या कितनी बार आपकी कहानी, और जरूरी नहीं कि किसी ने मना कर दिया, किसी एडिटर को कहानी पसंद नहीं आई तो उसकी वजह ये कि आपने लिखा अच्छा नहीं. हो सकता है कि उनके पास स्पेस ना हो सकता है कि वो आपकी कहानी उनकी थीम के मुताबिक ना जाती हो सकता है कि आपका स्टाइल मुख्तलिफ हो उस स्टाइल से जो उन्हें चाहिए हो, वगैरह वगैरह. ऐसी बहुत सारी वजूहात होती हैं जिनकी बिना पर कहानियां एक्सेप्ट की जाती हैं या रिजेक्ट की जाती हैं, तो दिल छोटा नहीं करना. Just keep writing. All right. I think I'm quite done here, Aisha. अगर
we should
any questions? जी जी.
Should I begin with my question?
जरूर.
So now I really, you were talking about detachment, sort of detaching yourself from your characters. And then you also mentioned that you have to read 100 stories in order to write one. So, but my question sort of, it's not a question. I just want to know whether if you haven't read anything about a particular topic or a character, or if you don't know much about them and you start writing, and then your writing turns out to be really good. How come that be possible when there is this ratio of so much of reading before writing one single story? You know what I mean? The point is that you don't have enough knowledge. Remember last year I had on, I discussed it with my students as well, that I started writing a story about a rickshaw driver, and I don't know much about how these people live and how they go about and how is their life, but I started writing and the story never got finished. Maybe I didn't try later on, but I don't know. I'm stuck in the middle. I'm unable to continue it. Maybe the story couldn't get a plot further. So these, I'm just trying to connect the idea of reading before writing. So is the reason behind me not finishing that story is that I'm not familiar with the life that these people are living, or maybe what could be the reason?
All right, this question has two parts. I'm going to answer the first one. I remember you telling me about the story.
Yes.
First of all, I remember that you spoke of it and you said that I have not been able to complete it. I think you have actually realized, you have already answered your own question, Aisha. I think the reason that maybe you are not finding your way out of the maze that you have created or the labyrinth that you have created. And since it is a labyrinth, I say this in a very positive way. Until and unless you weave weave an entangled web of characters and stories and diction and nuances and narratives and discourses, you are not going to tell a story properly. It has to be like that. It is again that image of the veins and arteries. You have to put yourself and your reader in a tangle, and then you make your way out of that. That is how impact is created in storytelling. So yes, the answer to your question is what you have already said, and that is maybe you need to get out of the room, move away from the laptop, and go and actually speak to rickshaw drivers. Not one, 5. If not
All right.
100, yes, 5, and then you get your answer. Second part, when I say that you need to read 100 books to write one story, that is something of a hyperbole, of course. But then the point is not, you don't have to read 100 stories to write one story so that you can lift something out of every story from the 100 stories. That's
That's exactly what I was saying. When
Yes.
you
That is not it.
As students of literature, when we start writing, there are from every, for example, Shakespeare, Milton, as you talked about. So we get those chunks in our writings. I don't know. Maybe it's the influence,
that's not it. That's not the point. That's not the point. In storytelling, I mean, it's choice that you want to quote something, but that should only happen once in, I think, 50 pages. If you're going to quote another writer, you're going to put something in parentheses, or you're going to put something inside inverted commas because it's been borrowed by some other writer. Usually, I'm not a fan of that, to be very honest. But if you do that, be very prominent that yes, this is why I'm quoting a poet here. This is why I'm quoting a novelist here. I'm not taking, it's not like, borrowing ideas or stealing ideas from other authors, but to project other authors. That is something different. That is different. But within your script, it's your story. The reason behind reading a lot before you sit down to write is not because you have to pick or borrow things from other writers. Not pick storylines, not pick direct quotes, not pick direct sentences. Pick their style if you like it. Pick their way of telling a story. Pick their melancholy. Pick their cheer. Pick their happiness. The way they end a story, the way they start a story, the way they, style. There's nothing wrong. If you feel that Henry James has a very, very good style of writing essays or storytelling, then it's fine. It's fine if Henry James, his style shows in your writing. That's fine. What's wrong with that? But not because you built up a character based on a novel written by or a story told by Henry James. Not like that. You might enjoy the way Shakespeare writes his poetry. I'm not talking about his plays. I'm talking about his sonnets and his plays and his ballads and something. You might enjoy that. And you are intelligent and smart enough as students, of literature, that this is how Shakespeare is building up a mysterious, there's this poem, I don't know, I read it, I was very young, Who is Sylvia? I really like that. I enjoyed that poem. It's, full of mystery about a girl named Sylvia. Who is Sylvia? Where is she? It's beautiful, beautiful way to start it. So if you like that poem so much and you want to create a character who's as mysterious as Sylvia, then fine. Fine that your character, a woman character in your story or in a novel is mysterious. She's beautiful. She's out there, but out of reach. If you want to create that kind of a character, that's fine. But not because you put Sylvia's blue eyes in your character's characterology. You don't give Sylvia's golden hair to your character just because Sylvia has golden hair, or she's a blonde. That's not it. Since the character itself appeals to you, the intricacies of that character appeal to you. So let those intricacies shine. Why do you have to take direct quotes? Why do you have to take direct imagery? Don't do that. That would be a disservice to your writing. Don't do that. That answers the question. And you need to finish that story. It's been.
I will, inshallah.
Good luck.
Thank
Do
you.
we have more questions?
Zubia?
Yes, ma'am, I have a question.
Please go ahead.
Who is that?
Ma'am, you said we should not put our character, put ourselves on our character, right? What if we put our character on ourselves?
अरे वो तो
What you say?
फ्यूजन हो जाएगी बहुत. आप कौन, आपका नाम क्या है बेटा? मुझे आप दिखाई नहीं दे रही हैं. अपना नाम बताइए.
I'm Maria.
मारिया, राइट मारिया. देखिए ये तो बड़ा कंफ्यूजन हो जाएगा आपके लिए अगर आप अपना कैरेक्टर देखें. अगर तो आप पर्सनल ग्रोथ की बात करें, अगर तो आप ग्रूमिंग की बात करें, अगर तो आप ये कह रही हैं कि मुझे अपनी पर्सनालिटी को या अपनी शख्सियत को निखार देना है और जो कैरेक्टर मुझे पसंद है, या मैंने नॉवल में कोई कैरेक्टर पढ़ा, या मैंने फिल्म में किसी हीरोइन को देखा, या मैंने ड्रामे में किसी खातून को देखा जो बड़ी अच्छी लगी, दिल को बहुत भाई काश में ऐसी होती, और आप अपने आप को रिफाइन करना चाहती हैं, अपने आप को रिफॉर्म करना चाहती हैं, दैट इज डिफरेंट. दैट इज समथिंग साइकोलॉजिकल, दैट इज समथिंग वेरी पर्सनल, एंड यू कैन ऑलवेज डू दैट. लेकिन अगर आप ये कह रही हैं कि कैरेक्टर या जो किरदार आप लिख रही हैं वो आपके ऊपर हावी हो जाए, तो अगर आपका मतलब ये है बेटा, तो वो वहां पे फिर वो जो मैंने बात की थी ना डिटैचमेंट की, मुझे डिटैचमेंट का उर्दू लफ्ज नहीं आता, माजरत है, लेकिन ये कि जहां पे वो आप थोड़ा सा फासला इख्तियार करते हैं अपने कैरेक्टर्स के साथ, वहां पे फिर आपको फौरन उस जगह पहुंच जाना चाहिए. अगर वहां पे हावी हो गया है कोई कैरेक्टर, इसका मतलब ये होगा कि आप उसके जो आपने जो उसकी जो भी आप उसकी इमेजरी बिल्ड करेंगे या जो भी आपने उसकी तख्लीक करनी है कागज के ऊपर, आप उस तख्लीक के साथ इंसाफ नहीं कर पाएंगे. इस बात का तज़किरा किया है कि अगर आप बहुत ज्यादा इन्वॉल्व हो जाएंगे इमोशनली अपने कैरेक्टर के साथ, तो फिर आप इंसाफ नहीं कर पाएंगे कागज पर. और कागज पर लिखा हुआ जो होता है वो तो मतलब निहायत उसमें तो इंसाफ होना चाहिए मेरा ख्याल. चाहे वो किसी कैरेक्टर के बारे में बात की जा रही है या कहानी के मुतालिक बात की जा रही है, लेकिन अगर आप इंसाफ से, बैलेंस से, तब आपको बड़ा ध्यान रखना पड़ता है इन चीज़ों का कि आप सिर्फ एक ही सिमत में ना निकल जाए किसी कैरेक्टर को बनाते वक्त या तख्लीक करते वक्त. इस चीज़ का बड़ा ध्यान करना चाहिए. तो अगर लिखते वक्त कोई किरदार हावी हो जाए अपनी शख्सियत पर, तो फौरन फासला इख्तियार करें. पढ़ते वक्त हावी हो जाए तो उसकी खैर है, उसमें कोई मजाक नहीं. मेरे ख्याल में वो तो बड़ी एक उम्दा बात है, बड़ी अच्छी बात होती है कि आपका एक अचानक आपको पढ़ते पढ़ते कोई शख्स या कोई खातून या कोई इंसान ऐसा नजर आ जाए जो फिक्शनल है, लेकिन आपको लगता है कि यही है, तो अमेजिंग. उसमें तो कोई हर्ज नहीं है. तो ऐसे ही है जैसे फिल्म या ड्रामे में आपको कोई किरदार भा जाता है और आप उसकी वजह से आप फिल्म और ड्रामा देख लेते हैं सारे का सारा, तो इसमें तो कोई हर्ज नहीं है मेरा ख्याल. आई होप दिस आंसर्स द क्वेश्चन, मारिया.
Yeah, ma'am.
Good, great.
Ma'am, I had a question.
Ji, Zobia.
Question that we have read not Gadamer, and she shifts narratives like from first person to third person, like very often. It's there in a lot of her stories. So like while I'm writing stories, it's like it's something I aspire to, not just aspire, like lekin jab likhte hue so it's there ke I shift narratives. So but when I read it as a reader, it's very confusing for the reader to have that shift in narrative. So to what extent it is justified to have that shift from first person to third person and then back to the first person, to an extent ke reader ke liye it's understandable that like that shift is there.
ज़ोबिया मैं समझी नहीं है फर्स्ट पर्सन नैरेटिव और थर्ड पर्सन नैरेटिव के दरमियान में कैसे शिफ्ट हो रहा है जरा मुझे बताइएगा मिसाल कैन यू गिव मी एन एग्जांपल of how it's happening in the text that you're reading?
There's the story Spoils that, and also the story Once Upon a Time by Nadeem Godimer, and where
Okay.
she starts off with a story there where she
Are you talking
is
about the voice? I'm sorry, Zubia, but are you talking about the voice? There's this
voice
first
of the character.
voice,
Yes, yes,
and
voice
then
of,
there's the third person voice. That's
yes,
it,
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
right? That seems like a very challenging script. I'm sure writers are, they're very independent, they're free to experiment with their style. If that is the kind of style that attracts you and you think that it's going to be, it's something that you aspire to do, since you've already used the word aspire, then why not? Why not? To me, to me, I find it very difficult to shift my voice in, in different ways. If I'm giving different voices to different characters, I would keep it, I would keep it in first person, for example, like dialogues or soliloquies or monologues. I'd give them that. If I'm narrating the story as a third person, there was a rabbit who went down the rabbit hole, for example. So this is the third person's voice. I'd keep it like that. But of course, writers, things are changing. In literary landscapes, people are experimenting in different ways. There's this book that I was reading, and well, I'm not going to quote a lot of examples here, but the thing is that, yes, experimentation is fine if you're enjoying that story, if you don't find it confusing, and you rather find it very interesting, so that it has inspired you, it has given you, some sort of inspiration, then why not? You should go for that. That's fine. There's no problem with that. Neither reading nor writing. I hope that answers. Yes, thank you. Do we have more questions?
Ma'am, I have a question.
Nuria.
Ma'am, so my question was, I'm very new to short fiction, and I only used to write poetry before. So
Yes.
when you talked about not putting ourselves in our characters, like not making not making it about ourselves, not making it like an
Yes.
autobiography, right? So
Yeah.
I made the mistake, but I made it in like a minor character. So when I was going on with it, when you're talking about yourself, you kind of become biased because your opinion gets in, and we always have the perception that we're supposed to be
Yes.
right.
So you become defensive. Yes.
We become defensive. So what are some of your like good tips for like not being judgmental towards your characters and not like wanting a specific ending? Like we're taught to think that a happy ending is something that's supposed to be there, but whenever
Yeah.
I'm reading something, I'm more into like an ending that's unexpected. That's what's so much better than a normal happy ending. So like what are some of your good tips?
All right, these are two questions again. First was how to not get involved, personally get involved in character building. I think for students, it's the best way is that when you are knowingly or unknowingly putting yourself into a character, what you're doing is that maybe you lack expression somewhere of your own feelings. So that's not the time to write fiction. Just put fiction thing away, your writing pad away, and take out your journal and write the heck out of what you want to write. Express your feelings. Then you get defensive, that's fine. It's perfectly acceptable to get very defensive about yourself or judgmental about yourself when you're writing for yourself, yes, in a journal, for a personal bit of writing, or maybe even for a publication who has asked you to tell your story. There is this publication, I've totally forgotten its name. Thrive Global, yeah? Thrive Global, ye likh lijiyega aap log, because I find it very interesting. Sometimes I read stories of women there. Encourage you to tell your stories of strength, your stories of stoicism, your stories of your personal experiences. So if you're writing for that kind of a publication, why not go ahead, tell your story to people, especially if you think that it's going to help other people, if it's going to open the eyes of other people towards certain experiences which only you have lived through or something. So why not? But when you're writing fiction, that shouldn't happen. When that is happening to you and you're putting yourself and you're starting to tell your own story, in a very fictionalized account, that means that you lack expression somewhere, that you need catharsis. Even in writing, if writing is your catharsis, then go and write somewhere else. Go and write something else. And then when you're done, when you've vented it, when you're clean, then go back to fiction writing. And then you will want to explore other stories. Also try to, you see, try to be very generous to the people that you come across. You don't really have to tell the stories of people only that you know very well. Meri behan, mera bhai, mere, I don't know, mamu. It's all right. These people give us the richest of experiences. They give us the richest of experiences because we interact with them so much that there is so many things to unpack. And we can include them in our fiction. But that is not the only thing that should be out there. For example, I hate tooting my own one, but okay. In this book, there are 10 stories. Yes, one is of a girl who has reached Pakistan from India in 1947. I have not lived through that experience. I have heard stories. Okay. One story is of a girl who lives in the mountains of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa in Hazara. Yeah? She lives there. I don't live there. I don't live her life. Right? So that made me research a lot, speak to a lot of people, go there, see the scene, and then write the story. There are many writers who do excellent jobs. This is just one book of short stories. I'm not telling, this is not self-projection, please. But what I'm trying, since this is the only handy example I have right now, is I have to use this book. I'm sorry. I feel really bad when I'm projecting my own book during discussions. So there is this one story that is set in Waziristan. I've not been to Waziristan, but I've watched a lot of documentaries. I've watched Waziristan on TV, almost every day. Some years back, we were talking about Waziristan a lot during news bulletins and everything. I've read about Waziristan a lot. So you see, that is the thing. That is the thing. When you start giving importance to people and stories which are out there, but they're not important enough to be explored. Maybe we feel that they are not commercial enough to be told. Or, the story of a transgender who just knocks at your door and makes you laugh with her jolly character. If she identifies as a woman, she's wearing makeup. That is usually how it happens in Pakistan, that when you see transgenders, on the roads, or when they come to your house and they ask for alms or something, what do? They're important enough. Their stories are important enough to be told. Just like Aisha mentioned, a rickshaw driver. Yeah, she doesn't know any rickshaw driver personally. She doesn't interact with them, but then she's telling their story because actors are always out there. We just need to open our eyes to them, I think. I think this was a very, very long speech. Nuria, what was your second question? I've totally forgotten. Can you repeat it?
Ma'am, I was asking about how in like black and white characters, we're told that, like, I personally sometimes think that I should give it a happy ending, but then there's this conflict where I want to give it like a very unexpected ending.
Yes.
So like, what should you do in those scenarios? Like, how do you choose?
Do what you want. Do what you want. I'm also a fan of abrupt endings. I like them. I like those. I think they leave a lot of room for imagination. They leave a lot of room for exploration and thinking. When you think about the story that you've already read, I already explained that. When you think about the story that you've read, when you're thinking about the story that the characters, when you think about the characters that you have already, you're already done with that really evolves you as a reader. It really evolves you as a reader, and it helps you as a writer, because that leaves a greater impact in your head. And those characters, those storylines, if they have affected you in a positive or a negative way, they will help you when you're writing your story. You will know which arcs to avoid, which characters to avoid, and which to, take help from. That is fine. If you want to end a story abruptly, do that. But don't do it so abruptly that the reader feels shocked. Don't shock the reader. Yeah. Leaving something open-ended is different from shocking. That shouldn't be. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you so much. That did.
Do we have more questions?
Do we have any more questions? Anyone else?
I have a question. Ma'am, I
Hi,
have a question.
Aisha. Yeah, I remember you.
I do have.
Ma'am, I have a question.
Okay. There are two Aishas.
There's Aiza and Aisha.
Oh, right.
Let Miss Aisha, have her question first. Okay. Next, it will be your turn. Ji, Aisha.
Okay. Ma'am, there's this issue with me. I need a jolt to write. if something unusual happens with me, any unusual happening and event, it would give me an impetus to write. Otherwise, I would keep on slumbering. And I have a very normal sort of life. It does not happen to me on daily basis that something unusual happens. Let me uh, put an example. One day I was driving back from my work. It was June and extremely hot day, and I wanted to reach back home. And suddenly I saw this elderly couple on the road, Pathan couple, Pathan Babaji and his wife. She was in that shuttlecock burqa which they wear, and they were trying to cross the road. And I stopped the car for them because they were trying to cross it. And then the man, first he was very thankful. Okay, he stepped forward, but then he looked at me and he saw that there is this lady behind the wheel, and he looked at me with anger and he said no. He pointed with his hand that go away. You drive your way, I'm not going to cross this road. And I was so amazed that what has just happened to me. Events like this, they would force me to write, and I have written a few things, but otherwise I'm unable to write. What should I do?
I don't know if see, Aisha, you seem to be like a person who waits for inspiration to strike. Yes? When inspiration comes to you, then you can write. You can't have a routine that, today I have to write a short story. Sit down and let's start writing. It's fine. That's perfectly fine. I don't see why you're worried about this, because what you have just related is a very interesting incident. And if it has made you write a short story or anything, that's something very interesting. I'm sure that since you're moved by these, if you're moved by something like this, it means you're a very sensitive person and you find it worthy enough to put it to pen and paper. That is also very encouraging, and you should pursue it. That's fine. You don't have to worry about how much I have written and for how many hours I have written in this week. That shouldn't be important to you. If these things, but then don't let this decision or this choice of waiting for the muses or waiting for inspiration or waiting for heart-rendering incidents only to guide you when you need to write. Then that also means that you need to keep your eyes open. That also means that you have to be more observant. Then that means that you have to listen to other people more. It means that you have to look at things and images and objects with a keen eye. That is something that you can sharpen. That is a skill or a craft that you can do to yourself, or just make a habit of for yourself, because it's going to help you immensely as a writer. If this is something that is a coincidence, but coincidences are not going to happen frequently. That means that you're going to write a story only after 1 month because something happened and you saw it or you witnessed to it, or because you heard a story that really affected you deeply. No, that should not be it. Every time you go out, try to look at things for what they are. One of my favorite examples to quote is Keats's negative capability. His capability, you already know what negative capability is. I don't really need to go into that, but his ability to stand and see things for what they are is so endearing. That is something that's really romantic. Yeah. I feel that, someone who can see beauty in autumn, someone who can see beauty in a Grecian urn, someone who can see beauty in death. There's this sleep, he's written a poem about sleep and he compares it to death and he glorifies it and how beautiful and how much wanted and needed sleep is. So, the reason for quoting these examples is that when we try to see things as a seer, this is also a word that was already know. I think it was in the Intimations of Immortality. When you become more than just a gazer, from someone who gazes at things and someone who sees things. So at least cultivate yourself, cultivate your senses, and allow them to imagine, allow them to observe things from a writer's point of view. Not just from a person who's going from college to home, or who's working at home, or who's going to a shadi, or who's going to a tea party with her friends. We all do those things. I also do these things. But then the stories, they don't just come to me from above. They come to me through observations. Because when you look at trees, you see images in them. You look at flowers, you get images in them. And these are not only the only things that give you inspiration. There's also this, the reason I could never connect to Wordsworth was also because that, all the talk about flowers and trees and all that is, this is so incomplete. This line, usually it stays with me from Tennyson's poem, that nature is not just about, this is paraphrase, of course, that nature is just not about flowers and boughs and trees and rainbows and clouds and rain. It's also about nature with red in tooth and claw. Yes? So why not also see those things? Why not see the cruelty? Why not see the insensitivities? Why don't see the discrepancies in the world? And then draw your inspiration from them. Because when you start looking at things from an observer's point of view, because you need to observe properly, since you have to put it down on paper, then you look at things from a 360-degree angle. And that helps as a writer. I think that is what I would suggest you do. Since you have a sensitive heart, you have this, you want to write more. I can see that you want to write more. I think this is what you should do. Just cultivate that sense of seeing. I hope that answers the question. All right, I think Aiza wanted to ask.
There is another question. Aiza wanted to ask something.
Yes, ma'am, I want to ask that. Like when I write a story, it is very. Can I ask?
जी मैं सुन रही हूँ, बताइए.
Ma'am, whenever I write a story or I'm about to write a story, I'm very much concerned that do I need to keep in mind about the reader, that will he be able to understand what I want to say? And I also want to ask that how much context is important in order to understand the story, because I believe that there are multiple interpretations, but there is a close interpretation what the writer wants to say. So how much context is important?
The first question, what was that? Aiza, can you repeat, please? The first question was? You asked me 2 questions.
I was saying that while I'm writing something or about to write, so I keep in mind that how the reader will understand that.
Yes.
So do I need to keep in mind about the reader? Because there are different readers, there are different types of readers.
Yes, of course you have to. You have this responsibility.
Excuse me, ma'am, actually I have the same question. I wanted to ask, addition to this question, I'm sorry for cutting you in between. Ma'am,
no, I was just startled. It's okay. I hope.
I'm very sorry. I apologize. Ma'am, what I wanted to ask that, as you stated earlier, that you can choose an ending of your choice. Like you can choose whatever you want. Your character can be of your choice, and everything could be of your choice. But ma'am, what is the point when the audience you're catering are not relating to your story or are not understanding what you're saying? It's like if I'm writing for myself, then it's okay. But if I'm writing to cater an audience, then what would be the point of my ending if they're very absurd or very abrupt?
Okay, are you done?
Yeah, ma'am. I'm very sorry.
Okay. No, that's fine. That's a very good question. I think I'm going to answer this one first and then go back to Aiza again. Aiza, I'm sorry, but I think, first of all, when you're telling a story or when you are bringing it to an end, and it's abrupt or it's open-ended in a way that it leaves some room for thinking, that is different from not ending a story at all. What you are saying, what you are suggesting is a conclusion in which the readers, they are just left shocked. I already discussed this. What happened here? How did this happen? Where does this go from here? That kind of a shock is unjust. That is not something that I would recommend. I have already spoken about this. But leaving something open-ended, leaving something impactful, even if not completely rounded off, is fine, in my opinion. It's like these we always have. That leaves room for imagination. It leaves room for thinking. I'm not saying that you leave the story completely untold. What you are saying is of a story that is not told fully. That is certainly not required. The first part of this talk or this discussion was very heavily based on the three components of a short story: the beginning, the middle, and the end. When you leave something open-ended, it means that the last 1 or 2 lines are not something like a ribbon around a gift box that completely wraps it. It means that it's just out there. You have reached somewhere, the characters have reached somewhere, the narration has found its ending, but there is still room for more. Okay? If you are a habitual, regular short story reader, then you must already be familiar with the fact that
But
when
ma'am,
we
as you
stories-
said that I can choose, I can make an ending of my choice,
yes,
of my
but you
wish.
cannot shock them. But you cannot
Ma'am,
shock
I'm not leaving it, but
cannot shock them.
there could be 1,000 possible endings, and I'm choosing one I like. My taste is absurd. My choice is absurd. So, should I consider the readers, or should I do what I want to?
Fiza, now when you are talking about writing the way you want to and not keeping a bound or not keeping, in line with what literary rules are, that's fine. That's independence. That is something that is your choice. You want to do that. But then, that I don't understand what you mean by audiences. I don't understand what you mean by readers. Because if you're going to write something, for example, and you want to get it into print, let's say, it's on your blog, it's there. It's going to be there because it's in your power to put it up on your blog. If it is, a book that you are getting crowdfunded and you're printing it yourself, because that is something also very cool these days, people self-publish their books. So if you are going to do that and there is no one to judge what you have written, there is no editor involved, there is no one to suggest that this thing has to be corrected, or there is something which I feel needs to be reworked, and you are independently doing this, and you are reaching out to what you call audiences, or which you're reaching out to other readers, then that's also doable. What the readers feel should not be a concern then, since you have chosen to rebel. Why are you worried about that then? Yes, you have chosen not to follow a set pattern and write for yourself. Then what the readers think should not concern you.
Then
Yes?
I wouldn't be appreciated.
You
Like
won't
there are
appreciate what?
No, ma'am, then I would not be appreciated because
Yes.
they won't connect with me and they won't like me. Like those movies, there are movies.
No, that's also not 100% guaranteed thing. There might be other people like you who would like this kind of writing, who would like to just read something. I mean, this is not for you to judge. Before you have written a story, before it is published, before it has reached its readers, you're worrying too much. When you're worrying without writing a story, I don't see where you're going with this. You see, if you want to take a chance, take it. Then what's holding you back? Then why are you holding yourself back? Either you want to take a chance or you don't want to take a chance. That's it. I think that should answer the question, Fiza. I think I've answered 4 or 5 questions for Fiza.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
I would like to go back to Aiza, who has been very patient. Aiza?
Yes.
चली तो नहीं गई बेचारी.
No, she's my president. She can't go anywhere.
Oh, amazing. Amazing. Congratulations. It's always very good to see presidents and secretaries of the Literary Society.
Yes.
Oh, amazing. The badges are still the same? Are
Yes,
they?
they're still the
Oh,
same.
amazing. I have mine. Great.
She's back.
जी कहाँ है? आयजा, प्लीज आप अपना सवाल दोहरा दीजिए. मुझे भूल गया बिल्कुल. I'm sorry, मैंने पहले भी आपको दोहराने को कहा था, लेकिन मेरे बिल्कुल ज़हन से निकल गया.
Is she audible?
Yes,
I think
No,
she's
she's
I
not.
wanted to ask that how much context is important to have a good interpretation of the story
जी, और दूसरा सवाल?
while writing.
आयशा, दूसरा सवाल आप बता दें कि मुझे उनकी आवाज नहीं आ रही.
I simply can't hear her. I don't know what's wrong. Isa, could you speak a little louder? We can't hear you.
How much is important?
जी context
I'm
What
saying
important?
that
context का
how
मैं आपको
much
बता देती
context
हूँ.
is important.
जी, context is very important, of course, even as a reader. If you are a habitual reader, you should already know that context is very important. We are writers, we're always readers since our childhood or from girlhood or as adults. So if you need to understand something, if you need to understand a character, if you need to understand a certain arc of the story, of course you're going to need context. It's very important. There are no two opinions about this. You can ask anyone, any of your teachers as well, or your classmates, and they will give you the same answer. Until and unless you have a complete understanding of the context.
Yes, but ma'am, there are multiple interpretations to yes.
Multiple interpretations to who? Are you asking me that different readers see characters and
there are
stories
different readers,
differently?
they have different interpretations while reading a short story or a novel.
Yes, and that's fine. That's fine. That doesn't change the shape of the context that the writer has given to you.
Okay, ma'am.
Right? That just shows that since, I mean, for example, there is the story and it is set in a village, for example.
Okay, ma'am.
So whatever way the characters are going to behave, whatever language they're going to use, whatever their dialogues or their monologues are going to sound like, whatever kind of relationships they are going to experience, whatever kind of interactions they are going to have with their family members or their friends or with their enemies, that is going to reflect in the tones of someone living in a village. Right? So what the readers derive, of course, readers are going to derive differently things from text because they're different people. I often say this to my children and during these talks as well, that reading is like, it's like that proverbial story of the elephant and the 6 blind men. Yes, the elephant is there. But the 6 blind men, they have their hands on different parts of the elephant. And that is what an elephant means to them. To one, it is like a wall. To one, it is like a rope. To one, it is like a pipe. To one, it is like a horn or something like that, the tusk part. So readers are always going to infer different things from one singular script, and that is fine, which is why it's a great responsibility to write something, I believe. The narration, it always has to be very constructive rather than being destructive. Because of course the readers are going to take away something from the book that they are going to read. And that's something that the writers always need to keep in their mind. I hope that answers the question. Aiza, beta aapka dusra sawal kya tha?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Ji. I think Aisha, I think I can't hear her. Can we move on?
I can't hear her either.
Yeah, I'm so
Miss,
sorry,
you
Aiza beta.
answered- Miss, you already answered her question.
Oh, all right.
The other
Great.
one.
Okay, Acha, I did. Okay. Okay, thank you. Do we have any more questions, Aisha?
Any more questions?
Ma'am, I have a question.
Okay,
Sumbul,
can this be
go
the
ahead.
last question?
All right, this is going to be the last question. Sumbul, please.
Yes,
go
thank
ahead.
you.
Okay, so my question is that whenever we are writing a short story and we are about to introduce our main characters, so to what extent is it important to know your character, to be well aware of your character, and to what extent, like what are your main character's desires, his flaws, and his fears, especially in a short story fiction?
It's
And
very
I have
important.
another question.
Ji.
I have another question that you said earlier that let the characters grow independently. And the other hand, it is said that author speaks through their characters. So
Yes,
this is what I wanted to ask.
yes. They're both true. I'm going to answer the second question first because that has hit me a little harder. Yes, why not? I mean, they're growing independently. By that, it is meant that you don't put yourself in the character. The character is not you. Yeah. If I'm telling a story about Rahat, for example, Rahat is not Sana. Rahat is Rahat. Right? This brings me back to your first question. How important it is to know your characters very well. It is very important. That is exactly what I've just I've already spoken about, that you can conjure them up, you can see them, You can dream about them. You can talk to them. Characters can get really real, very real. They can spring up alive in front of you if you are really involved with that character. Okay, or you really want to understand them. Why not? It's very important. Second, when you say the third thing, when you say that writer speaks through the characters, that is also true. The writer speaks through the character because that is the only way you avoid commentary. When I said that in your flash fiction, in your short form fiction, don't add passages of commentary, which is possible in novels, and you hear the writer's voice, but don't do that in short stories. The only way you bring a character alive is how you describe them. But you can't only be descriptive about characters. You have to add speech to them, right? The way they interact with other people, the way they think, the way they act or behave. These are the 3 or 4 things through which you exude the personality of the character to the reader. All these 3 things are doable. These are the 3 things which make things, build up a character. Otherwise, if you're only going to describe about a character, this is what he used to think, this is where he used to go, this is where he used to, go to school, this is the time when he used to have to tea, it's going to get boring. It's going to become an essay. It's going to become a biography of a character, right? So again, those veins and arteries and capillaries, you have to spread out just to explore, just to say, for example, just to tell that this character is very compassionate. You show them certainly, with a poor person. For example, you want to show that a character is hard-hearted, you show them yelling at their servants, for example, or the people who work in their house, the domestic staff. These are just examples. So through interactions, through dialogues, through speech, and through description, of course, you build up a character. And that is what the writer intends to do. The writer's intention is visible in every word he has chosen. He or she or they have chosen. It's evident. So all these 3 things are correct. You just have to understand them in their context. I hope that answers the question, Sumbal.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right.
Aisha, had so much fun.
Thank you.
You're wonderful
Sana,
students,
it's
very smart.
Wonderful learning experience for me, and I'm sure everyone else have learned a lot.
Oh, so kind, very kind.
Thank you very much, Sana. We've taken a
Thank
lot
you very
of your
much.
and
No, it was a pleasure. I didn't really expect so many questions, but these were very intelligent, very smart questions. I enjoyed answering them, discussing them with the girls. I hope they enjoyed the workshop as much as I did. I hope to see you all again. Thank you for inviting
it
me.
shows on their faces.
I'm glad. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much once again, Sana. Inshallah, see you very
bye. Bye-bye. Take care.
soon.
Allah
Take care.
Hafiz.
I think it has ended. Are we waiting for some formal closing of it?
I think we must leave now. I think that conference is over.
Yes, you can all leave. Thank you so much.
This is what I also.
Okay. Allah Hafiz.
Allah
Allah
Hafiz, everyone.
Thank you. Allah Hafiz, everyone.